Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new offering here at ReInsurance Business, our new quarterly editorial roundtable featuring some of the biggest names across the reinsurance space. Yes, much like our sister website, Insurance Business offers you quarterly panels for specialisms like cyber, construction, property and more. Now, ReInsurance Business has its own offering as industry experts share their insights on the state of the market from around the globe. So who is on our debut panel? Well, I'm delighted to introduce Ming Lee, Partner EVP and Global Head of CAT at Acrisure Re. Damar Buckle, Reinsurance Broker Treaty at Aon Reinsurance Solutions. Ian Reynolds, Director of Third Party Capital at Peak Re. And Paddy Boosfield, Managing Director at Howden Re. So welcome everyone, and to get us started, what were your key takeaways from the January 1st renewals? Did anything surprise you, Paddy?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think the two surprises we had, first time in 2019, the global prices and premiums grew from exposure, not price. The second was that for the first in 5 years, rates fell across the board in some segments drastically and some less. And for the final one is for the fourth year in a row, non-peak losses outpaced peak perils.
And when we're talking about losses, I have to think of you, Damar, because you faced an incredible situation in Canada last year, some of the biggest losses in Canadian history.
Yes, indeed. So prior to this renewal, reinsurers globally have been facing significant losses, and in that kind of was the precursor to 2023 reset years where saw prices went up, retention went up. 2024 was pretty relatively benign year for cat losses globally, but in Canada specifically, we had significant losses around 8.5 billion, which is significant for our market. Definitely stressed a lot of programs where definitely saw some retentions went up, pricing definitely went up. Risk adjusted wise, it was double digits for loss affected programs. And the loss free programs was below 10 to flat. Even some decreases too as well. What surprised me was at the 11th hour, you had a lot of reinsurers, whether from APAC, in Bermuda or Lloyd's, entering the market, and that definitely put some downward pressures on pricing too as well, and where demand and supply met.
Yeah, what was particularly incredible, of course, about Canada is how many of those losses seem to occur within a period, I think it was about 27 days. Ming, if I can bring you in to the conversation as well. I mean, Damar there is obviously talking about a very unusual situation in Canada, but overall, would you say that there's been a transition to a more stable market?
Yeah, I think overall it's not much a surprise because, it's one of the few years early protection actually holds up. Because throughout the years, people have been talking about the price that will go down, especially for the property cat reinsurance market. It did end up that way. We did get a bit scary with the Hurricane Lee and the Hurricane Milton, but we basically avoid the worst case scenario. So by the conclusion of the 1/1 renewal for the property cat reinsurance market, we are seeing from 5% to 15% decrease in the price. So yeah, I think overall it's a very orderly renewal. We are basically transitioning from the hard market to a more stable market. And so it's easy to see how this next renewal is going to come up.
Okay, so an ordinary renewal is how Ming describes it. But Ian, were there any surprises?
Yeah, I think we were surprised just with the oversupply of capacity, and it was not. Property grabs all the headlines, but we saw this globally, and we saw it across many lines. Lots of programs placed at 150% plus. I think the surprise, at least for us, was that you didn't see pressure on structures and terms so much. It was purely rate was where we saw the softening, and that's not always been true in the past.
Well, it's an interesting point raised by Ming, though, when he sort of looked forward and said that perhaps this wasn't the most interesting renewal period, but there could be some interesting periods to come. So I guess my question for the group now is, how do you see market dynamics changing as the year progresses? And indeed, what are the key influencing factors or areas to keep an eye on? Damar, any thoughts on this?
following the record losses last year in Canadian market, and the recent renewal of the 1/1 treaties, as the dust settles on 1/1, so, we continue to see those increased prices trickle down to the primary market, and it may add upward pressure on, the commercial, personal property lines of business, and that may cause some social issues with increasing cost and for the end consumers too as well. As the year goes ahead, I definitely see climate change, the increase in frequency and severity in being a major topic of consideration, as the LA fires contribute to that. SCF, as Paddy had mentioned previously, seems to be increasingly become a peak peril, taking over the other perils too as well, such as earthquake, hurricanes, as those losses are taking less of the catastrophe losses globally. And this year, I think it's going to continue on that trend where cat losses globally continue to exceed that $100 billion US mark. As it relates to casualty, I think you'll continue to see conversations surrounding the US and social inflation, and how that plays out, and nuclear verdicts.
Yeah, and of course, one thing that's likely to be a huge influencing factor, Ian, is actually taking place right now as we're doing this recording, and those are, of course, the wildfires in Los Angeles.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's that the big question is sort of the shocking news of what's been happening in Los Angeles, and it leaves a lot of open questions, and so the downstream impact for the rest of the year depends upon what materializes. Is this one event or is it several? How will losses be distributed between what insurers retain, reinsurers pick up, retrocession picks up, or even ILS? If it does make it into the ILS space, there's bound to be trapped capital that will have a supply impact. And I think the broader question is the viability of property insurance in California.
Yeah, and that might be one of the key points that Ian has raised there, Ming, in terms of the dynamics between supply and demand. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely we want to keep a very close eye on. And the reinsurers have been having a couple of tremendous years for the last 2 years. So the supply has greatly exceeded the demand for the 2025 renewal. But going forward, with the reinsurance become more affordable, I think the insurers will come to probably buy more reinsurance to protect the earning rather than just the tail risk. So we'll see how this kind of interplay between the supply and demand that will greatly affect how this market evolves going forward.
Just going back to the LA wildfires, Paddy, is this likely to have a ripple effect in the wider market?
Yeah, absolutely. We've already seen some of the fine art and species markets quite concerned at the aggregates they have deployed there. And again, the size of limit versus the price there makes that market look pretty challenging. And again, we've mentioned the supply that came in at 2025. There is the great unknown is how this major cat at the beginning of the year will impact us at the end of December 25, and where the cat loads are, and if we're halfway through, or in some cases all the way through our cat loads at January, what does that look like for a vibrant market at the end of the year?
Well, in its market predictions for 2025, our friends at Swiss Re described the role of reinsurers as going beyond risk transfer, providing tools and insights to enhance risk management and awareness. So have you seen the role of the reinsurance broker change in recent times? And indeed, what increased expectation has this created? Let's start with somebody who's not a broker. Ian.
Thanks. So I did used to be, but no, I think from our point of view, the obvious trend in the sort of the broking market is the bifurcation of the broking market into these huge players and the smaller players. And there's much as there are interesting new players in the broking space, there is huge concentration of market share at the top of the pile. And so I think what we observe are brokers who are either challengers or part of the larger group who view themselves as one-stop shops offering advisory services and products and really the whole suite of services to their clients. And those who are marketing themselves more as a bespoke custom offering to more tailored to individual clients.
Okay, so one-stop shops and bespoke offerings. Ming, would you say overall the role of the broker is expanding, and there is that pressure to add those value-added services?
Yeah, I mean, that has been happening for quite a few years already. I mean, if we're not limited to the transaction, the brokers are supposed to provide more value-added services from advisory to analytics. But basically, we're embedded into the entire business cycle of our clients, from underwriting, claims management to portfolio risk management. And in some sense, I would say we're not just a broker of reinsurance. We're a broker of the data. We're a broker of the tools. We're helping our clients to get the best data available in the market to help with their business. So I would call it a true partnership between the client and brokers, and the alignment of interest of both parties.
Okay, so it's a true partnership, Paddy, but is there still a balance to be struck here if you are a broker in terms of your size and therefore how creative you can be?
I think it's an interesting and members up a good point. If you look at the 4 segmentations that a broker can kind of assist, you have kind of data collection, risk intelligence, you have transactions, and a sort of broader advisory, and that at any scale can be provided by all the brokers. I do think disruption and having looking at the parallel in the P&C market, where there are top 10 carriers, but there's also top 100 carriers. I think that is good for the market. It provides a thriving marketplace of ideas. But I totally concur with Swiss Re. You need to focus on kind of 3 major: risk, capital, and strategic advisory, and being able to be nimble and support that. I think the market is healthy. While there is a concentration with the top 2, there are upstarts such as Howden Re that are providing unique solutions that complement what Aon and Guy Carp can do, and similar with Acrisure. So I think there's a space for everybody. It's just finding those niches and finding that strategic advisory, which good people are at every shop, and so those good ideas are going to permeate the marketplace.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that Paddy's just made there, isn't it, Damar, in terms of the fact that you really have to differentiate yourself when there is so much consolidation in the market.
Yeah, as a reinsurance broker, there's definitely been a lot of consolidation in the market with really the top 2, the Aons, the Guy Carp, the Gallaghers of the world, and you definitely do have a few smaller players coming, the Lochtons, the Acrisures, and they're increasingly growing at a rapid pace too as well. So I think there's room for everybody, but being at the top of the reinsurance broking world, you definitely do have a lot to maintain. You got to differentiate yourself. One of those ways you differentiate yourself is adding value to the client through predictive analytics, relationship building, the ability to source capital. And I think a way that Aon does it, we invest a lot in our actual talent, our cap modeling talent, and provide, bespoke solutions for our clients, and, negotiate with the reinsurers, and also to our Marilla capacity, which, provides automatic catastrophe reinsurance coverage for, cedents globally too as well. And I think, cedents are increasingly looking towards brokers for strategic advice, how to manage their book, where they should grow to gain competitive benchmarking too as well, and how to increase the attractiveness of their balance sheet, their, cash flows, and to offload, stress there.
Well, another area, of course, that has seen strong support is the fronting market, now backed by more than 200 reinsurers. The relationship between the two appears to be a symbiotic one, with reinsurers providing the lifeblood to the fronts, while the fronting market has grown in importance to reinsurers in turn. So how have you seen the fronting business model shift, and how has this impacted retention strategies? Ming, I'll come to you for this.
Yeah, what I'm seeing in the market is actually the hybrid fronting model has become more popular recently. The fronting companies now not just simply offloading the risk to the reinsurers. They start to return more premium and bear more risk. And so it's more like have more skin in the game, so to speak. And there can be space for quite a while. They become more comfortable to retain some of the risk, but it does put a lot of requirement on the fronting companies to have more due to the due diligence in terms of which risk to write, which risk to return. But it is interesting dynamic play between the fronting companies, MGAs, and also reinsurers in this space.
And Paddy, is fronting still predominantly a US feature?
Absolutely. You know, and again, there was sort of a class of, I guess, 19 or 20, where there was an explosion of fronting carriers. And then, you know, the fact that fronting carriers are adopting the business model to take risk, I think is good for the longevity perspective. But I see value in fronting at all segments of the reinsurance and insurance supply chain. You know, we're seeing retro carriers use fronts to get closer to the original risk. Where I think there is potential growth is in rest of the world, in Bermuda, where I sit currently. You know, and bringing markets to risk is the name of our industry, and so fronting has been a fantastic enabler of that.
Okay, so if it is expanding, then have you seen anything particularly in the Canadian market, Demar?
Yes, there's definitely been an uptick in front end as I previously mentioned. Risk is getting more volatile, getting more complex, getting more niche, and you see the proliferation of MGAs in our market, you know, filling those gaps. And you know, I think the front end market definitely through reinsurance provides a lot of capital for those MGAs to write those niche, you know, specialized business and continue to grow. And I think, you know, we'll see more of that, you know, trickles into the Canadian market where traditional insurers, you know, they want to grow and they want to partner with MGAs to tap into those markets that they don't have necessarily specialized talent to tap into.
Well, you've all been very generous with your time today, but I just want to grab you for one more question if I can, and that is quite simply to leave our audience with a prediction for the reinsurance market in 2025. So gaze into that crystal ball for us, Ian.
Yeah, I think we've already covered sort of the big question mark, which will affect the market, which is the LA fires that we're seeing at the moment. Had it not been for that, I think 1/1 renewal had probably set the tone for the more mature markets out there. But we are an emerging market specialist in Asia, and I think we see plenty of exciting opportunities for growth with our clients in Asia.
Okay, so some exciting opportunities to look out for. Ming, any predictions from you?
Yeah, I think some of the reinsurance structures like the aggregate cover or multi-year coverage basically disappeared with a hard market. But now with the reinsurance market become more stable, I would say the interest to seek more earnings protection covers that we will pick up in 2025. And so we'll see more interest from the insurance companies to explore those options in the market.
Okay, so it looks like there's opportunities galore based on the answers we've had so far. Demar, is that how you see things as well?
I definitely do see that, you know, definitely, and all Canadian markets have been unique post-loss pricing and pressure on, you know, insurer financials. But you definitely, you know, starting to see the interest in Cat Act picking up too as well. It'd be interesting to see how the LA fires play out, or, you know, the estimated final cost, and how, you know, climate change continues to impact the insurance value chain and the reinsurance too as well. And how that's going to impact how insurers or reinsurers want to write, where they want to write, and how they want to grow. And in a world of increasing uncertainty, I think the broker is going to play a very critical role, you know, continue to play a very critical role as it relates to, you know, climate change, emerging risk, in both in the property and the casualty spaces.
Yeah, well, 3 great predictions so far. But Paddy, I realize I'm kind of putting people on the spot right now, asking for a prediction when we are, of course, in the middle of these wildfires.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 14 or 15 days ago, we released a 1/1 summary that was called Past the Peak. And while, you know, echoing the comments of the panel, I think in specific regions and specific subsets, there is still risk capital. We have an overarching event that is a huge question mark going into, you know, European winter storms, severe convective storms, hurricanes. So we've got potentially, you know, the entire cat load for certain new capital, you know, potentially earmarked at the 15th of Jan. So we have 11 and a half months to go. So I won't predict on risk and how the market will react to that, but I do think we can easily predict the predictive analytics and a push for utilizing the technology that exists in other industries will help create process efficiency. So that's my prediction. It will continue down that positive front, which is going to hopefully allow for better reaction to these these non-peak losses that continue to make it tough.
Really a lot to watch out for throughout the year, but excellent thoughts and a wonderful first panel. My huge thanks to you all for your time. And remember, of course, that this group will be back again in Q2. So make sure you stay tuned right here at ReInsurance Business TV.